Opening up the Peacock and Williamson mailbag on this Wednesday episode, who is the fourth best team in the NFL behind the Bills, the Eagles, and the Chiefs? Are those the true top three teams, by the way, in the NFL? And did we misread how good the New England Patriots roster is coming into the 2022 season? And how about the 2021 NFL draft, where all those quarterbacks still go high? Would Trevor Lawrence still be the number one pick? If not, then who would that be? All that and more coming up on today's episode of Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. All right. Always fun opening up the mailbag. Got a ton of great questions from the listeners this week. Twitter at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL is the best place to get those questions in. You can drop a comment in on the YouTube comment section as well. Matt, one of my favorites this week might take the most time. So let's start there. And we've talked a lot about, the top three teams, and week to week, it seems like the fourth best team in the NFL. Who that is kind of changes. Do we have a better vibe now after 6 weeks of the season? Who's the fourth best team in the NFL? If it is truly that easy, it's the Bills, it's the Eagles, it's the Chiefs. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I don't feel strong about who's number 4. To be very honest, I would have bet, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, that I would have said the Tampa Bay Bucks. I mean, I expected them to come here to my hometown, wipe the floor with the Steelers, get everything fixed, and Brady's fine, and they aren't to that point. I absolutely believe that. I don't think they're in the discussion. Are the Ravens or Bengals in the discussion? I think that's a little rich from what I've seen from them, and they're both 3-3.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, the Bengals especially. I don't know what to think about them. They haven't been super impressive at all. There's an interesting team. I'm looking at the Locked On Podcast Network Week 7 NFL Power Rankings. And this is the power ranking that we do every week where the hosts get together and vote on power rankings. And just after 1, 2, 3, which is 1, 2, 3 the week before as well. No change there.
Right.
4 through 15. Honestly, 4 through 20, there's so much volatility. Teams going up 12 spots, down 12 spots, up 6 spots. There is nothing after 1, 2, 3 that's even remotely consistent with these power rankings week to week.
I think there's 3 very good elite teams, whatever. We talked about that, obviously. I think there's about 8 garbage teams, maybe even 10. And then everyone else is sort of in the middle. Back to number 4, though. The Chargers have quietly won 3 in a row, but I thought they were very unimpressive watching their game on Monday night. So I don't think I can go there. I'm not going Giants 5-1. Sorry, not doing it. I think the Vikes are probably the consensus pick, but I have not seen anything I would resemble dominance from them. I can't go Niners or Rams, that's for sure, especially the Rams. I'm going to go Dallas, and I'm saying Dak is the quarterback now.
Dallas 4 with Dak. That is completely fair. Looking at the Locked On Podcast Network power rankings, Cowboys are down at 11 right now, and a lot of this happens because of who won the week before, and when it's that volatile, it's really easy for a team from 11 to 4 to flip, is what I'm seeing here.
Losing to Philly is nothing to hang your head over, though.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like the Chiefs, right? Losing to the Bills, that doesn't change anything. Maybe they go, maybe you would argue that they were 2 or 1, but they're still 3, and that they don't drop below that. So why would you drop the Cowboys below for losing with Cooper Rush at quarterback to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are unbeaten, especially when you're getting Dak back? So I like that. I like the argument for the Cowboys at 4. I like the argument for the 49ers at 4. They were 5 last week. They've dropped to 10 in the Locked On rankings.
Oh, that's so harsh.
It's a big drop, but as injured as the roster that showed up last week in Atlanta, without so many, both starting tackles, the entire defensive line, starting corners hurt and out of the game, that's fair to drop them down. If they're healthy, then they should be in the conversation for 4 or 5 and right in there. But right now they're not. And I think they might get Trent Williams and Nick Bosa back. So they're potentially a candidate, but right now still up in the air. So it's hard to put them in there. The team you haven't mentioned yet, I don't think, that actually got the 4th spot in the Locked On Power Rankings for week 7 is the Los Angeles Chargers. But their win wasn't impressive, even though they're 4-2 and they're a team that we thought would be good. It's hard to put them over the Vikings right now.
I mean, 3 wins in a row, overcoming this Herbert injury, and I don't think he's completely right. I think they're off next week. No Slater, no Bosa. No Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen was really missing this game. So I give them credit, but I do power ranks. Where is this team right now? And I feel like I'm not cheating saying Dak is now the quarterback. I don't think the Chargers beat Minnesota head-to-head, Dallas head-to-head. I think they couldn't easily be 3 or 4. I think they could be in that top group when things start clicking, but I don't think they're playing like that team right now.
I think you have to go scoreboard and say it's the Minnesota Vikings to answer the question.
Yeah, they don't pass the sniff test, though.
They don't, but right now that's where they're at. And none of these other teams really passed the sniff test either.
I know.
And, if you had
they're losing to Dallas. I'm telling you, Dallas is strong.
Okay, so Dallas 4 for Matt. And there's a big game. 49ers could knock off the Chiefs if they're back healthy. They get some of those players back, and then what are we talking about? That makes it even crazier. So
I don't think your Niners. I think your Niners could get there. I mean, they have the best defense in the league when right. I mean, right. I think Dallas is far off. Right.
They have to be healthy, and they should be probably in that conversation.
Yeah. Like, I don't even consider the Rams, though. I mean, they're the Super Bowl champs. They didn't even cross my mind.
The Bengals, the Ravens, the Bucks, the Packers, teams we expect should be there. Rams, but they're not.
Didn't even mention Green Bay.
Right. Yeah, I didn't even mention them. That's how bad they're playing right now.
That's how bad they're playing.
A lot of these teams at 3-3, and there's a lot of football left. So I love that question because it's so hard, because I would buy the nomination for about a dozen teams for that.
Yeah.
Right now.
Quick question for you, and I think everyone probably has the same answer. Do you agree the Chiefs are clearly 3, though? They're not 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're 4-2. They've lost 2 games. Eagles haven't lost to anybody until they start to lose a game, and you see any weaknesses in their roster, then they've got to be 1 or 2. And the Bills beat the Chiefs just recently, and we all thought the Bills were going to be really good coming into the year. So I think it has to be Bills and Eagles 1 and 2, and then Chiefs clearly 3 right now and have an opportunity. They've got to win some games and prove that they'd be 1 or 2.
And
so neutral field, let's say neutral field season just ended, Bills and Chiefs play. The Bills are favored, right?
No, I think so. Yeah, 100%. Do you agree the Chiefs are closer to 2 than 4, though?
Yes.
Okay. We're on the same page then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a huge gap. I mean, 1, 2, 3 is so easy, and 4 is so difficult.
Agreed. Dallas
Cowboys. There you have it. I'm going to go Vikings. I'm going to go scoreboard. And I haven't been a believer in the Vikings all year. But like the New York Giants kind of got to be in there too. Like, they're winning. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it at all. I think they're going to fall off, but they're clearly much better than we expected. I thought we were talking about them at 25, not 7.
Oh, 100%. I mean, their season's already a success, as is the Jets, as is Atlanta. And I don't think those teams are going to fall off a cliff. But, I mean, the Giants have outscored their opponents by, I think it's 14 points. That's but my Cowboys have only done it by 12, so maybe I should be quiet.
Real quick, we mentioned the Cowboys there. I think this could be a short one, a short answer. Are the Packers cooked, or can we expect a run-the-table style turnaround? This question from the NFL Draft Dodger on Twitter.
I wouldn't say cooked. I mean, I think they win 13 games every year, and Rodgers is back-to-back MVP. I think they will be in the playoffs, in the hunt. But Rodgers scares me. He doesn't look interested. He's not playing well. The passing game is bad. And the defense, I thought was going to be like a top 2 defense.
That's where. So I don't, and a lot of people point to the receivers. I don't think it's necessarily that much of a receiver problem. I mean, there's no obviously
it would help, but it's not the end of the world,
right? So yeah, Rodgers is not playing great, and I don't think Rodgers and LaFleur are on the same page. Rodgers like, I think we maybe need to simplify things, and LaFleur's answer to that was, I don't even know what that means. So that's not a sign, right? Between coach and quarterback, which is the most important marriage there is in sports. So definitely not cooked at 3, like all these teams that are 3-3 or above. That could be in any order in the next 11 weeks, right? But I don't think the Packers are going to win 10 of 11 games and be 13-win team again.
No, I don't either. It also wouldn't shock me if Rodgers looks at this and says, I'm done with this football stuff. I'm hanging it up, you know?
Yeah, right. But they could absolutely go on a run. And I do still expect them to go on a run and be a better team than maybe the New York Giants or someone like that in the end. Yeah. But we'll see.
I mean, I think they'll have a winning record.
Maybe we're just old and too set in our ways from our preseason rankings, and we won't believe in some certain teams like the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings. And how about those New England Patriots? Question about them coming up next. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you do is you add your job to the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And who are you spreading the word to? How about 800 plus million network-wide people that are on LinkedIn, right? That's the place where people who have or are looking for jobs are at. Maybe you find some people that didn't know they were looking for a job, and they see that your company is hiring and they are the perfect fit for you. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you are subscribed up to Locked On NFL, which is also the home of Peacock and Williamson. How about those New England Patriots? Our social team put together a funny video when I was trying to put you under the gun and make you praise Bailey Zappi, who is the current quarterback for the New England Patriots. And you said, yeah, you're not going to replace Mac Jones with Bailey Zappi. But if you just swap their uniforms and they had the other number on, would you really know the difference if you saw them out there and how they've played so far as Patriots? I'm not sure you would. And I don't think it points to the roster as much. The question here is, you guys have said all season the Patriots have a bad roster. This question from Ray. Appreciate the question, Ray. Is it time to reassess based on the performance of their most recent draft classes? Is there a single position group you would classify as quote unquote bad?
That's a good conversation. I mean, I always took the angle of who are the clearly above average starters, but maybe the angle is where are the weaknesses? You know what I mean? And that's such a Belichick thing. You know, 1 week, you know, we're going to put more stress on the linebackers. 1 week, we're going to put more stress on the corners. You know, it's going to be an O-line game. It's going to be a tight end game, whatever, you know, and that's obviously a Belichick thing. Who, oh, by the way, just tied George Halas, who coached for about 800 years, for the most wins ever, you know, or second most wins ever. You know, like, he's pretty good, you know.
The easy, simple answer here is the roster is not a big problem when you have the greatest coach of all time. Like, that's the thing here. When you start looking at the roster, so let's go offensive line. Trent Brown, left to right. Cole Strange, first-round pick. David Andrews, center. Mike Nwenu at right guard, and Isaiah Wynn at right tackle. Definitely not a bad unit. Maybe not the best offensive line in the league. Not bad, right?
Probably 10th.
Yeah. Quarterback, Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi. They haven't looked much different. You're getting a baseline level of quarterback play. Is it mediocre? Yes. Is it bad? No, it hasn't. Like, Bailey Zappi hasn't been bad.
No, he hasn't. I mean, he's played well. I just don't believe in him.
Right.
The one sticking point, because he can't afford this, Mac Jones turned the ball over way too much this year. Small sample size. he can't be somebody that has big highs, big lows, because he's
you have to
high
be
enough.
hyper efficient. You have to run the heck out of the ball and play defense.
Right.
With what you have in the passing game. Tight end, you're fine. Not great. Overpriced maybe, but Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, it's a fine.
Henry's having a fine year.
Ramondre Stevenson, good running back. Running backs don't matter. So, I'm not worried about running backs. Here's where they're bad. They're still bad at wide receiver. Devontae Parker comes in. It's kind of like a freebie trade. They didn't have to give much to get Devontae Parker. He's been their best receiver. You got Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Tyquan Thornton, the second-round pick, Kendrick Bourne. A lot of guys, but nobody, you look in the division. You have the worst wide receiver group by far in the division, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's not even close. So
I'm a little intrigued by Thornton. I'm glad he's back, but I'm not saying he's the next.
And he's, one trick pony. What he is, X receiver, downfield guy. He's not a complete, and we'll see what he ends up looking like, and can they utilize that? But their wide receiver group is I would classify as bad. And then when you have mediocre quarterback that's not going to elevate and has to be hyper efficient, then you better be able to run the ball and play defense, or you're not going to win football games. So that's where I would be worried about them in this day and age of NFL football. Defensive line, Dietrich Wise, Devon Godchaux. There's Christian Barmore, second rounder from last year. Matt Judon, it's okay. They got some there. Josh Uche, second rounder from 2020. I
love Barmore, but the rest of the guys are do your job, Belichick dudes, and Judon's better than that.
Big old Carl Davis inside as well.
Yeah.
Defense tackle, fine group. I wouldn't say they're above average. Are they bad?
No, they're not dynamic.
I would say they're bad at linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, they're not the worst. They're 24th.
And secondary, this is the team that's traditionally played a ton of man, and they've had those guys. And even when they didn't have the big names, they've found players to come in and play at a shutdown type of a level.
They kind of are doing that now with all these Joneses.
Yeah. We got Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, Marcus Jones.
Right.
Yeah. All the Joneses, Mac Jones too. None are related to my knowledge.
I don't think so.
You got Miles Bryant at corner, Jalen Mills.
Kyle Duggar's one of my favorites.
You have Duggar and McCourty, so you're fine at safety there. But corner, I would say on paper is a bad unit. But have they played bad? Under Belichick, the defense is playing pretty good, which is what happens, right? So I think the roster still, when you look at it, their best position groups are they're all right, and then there are some not good, legitimately not good position groups I think on the roster, but. Bill Belichick has got them to a level where they're 3-3. Are they going to maintain 500 or better throughout the season? I don't know. I don't think they're markedly different of a team than when we thought, but they're well coached. And we kind of always said that about it. We always said that immediately following, this roster's terrible, but they're probably going to be a 9-win team because of Bill Belichick, which is kind of what they're on path to do.
I hate the argument of Belichick can't win without Brady. I mean, I don't believe that at all. I mean, he has many instances of getting more out of a roster than most or any coach would. And even in the Super Bowls, I mean, Tom Brady didn't hold the Rams to 3 points. You know what I mean? There's a lot of instances of Bill being a major contributor here. But I still stand by it that maybe I'd bump them up, but maybe they're the 24th best roster in the league. I mean, they're not in the top 20.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have the Jets roster, the Dolphins roster, the Bills roster, right? That's just in the division. They've got the 4th best roster. So, yeah. How about this one? This is a good question from Black Gold Expat. He says, will the new concussion rules increase the value of the bench? Maybe teams will invest in their bench instead of huge contracts for stars. A third-string quarterback has never been more valuable than now. What do you think?
It's interesting.
I do think that there's something that's happened in the NFL, which is very interesting, because when you have the concussion stuff, and we've talked about how less valuable running backs are than they used to be. Maybe you think they're more valuable than I think they are, but clearly they're less valuable, getting paid less, getting drafted lower.
Sure.
Than so the league agrees to an extent, right? And it's because they get hit and they get hurt. But we're seeing more running quarterbacks, which means they're getting hit more, which means eventually those quarterbacks are going to get hurt more. We saw the concussion thing with Tua. I do think for teams that are putting their quarterbacks at risk need a really good backup where their season isn't lost. And I look at the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen's a big old dude, and I know that, but so is Derrick Henry. Eventually, if Josh Allen keeps running the ball like he does as often as he does, I would put Jalen Hurts in the same bucket. It looks good now. Things are going great. if you get hit, you're going to get hurt. That worries me. I think you have to protect your quarterbacks. I think that's really important because there's something to this. And now all it takes is a spotter to go, look like he got hit in the head. Now he's in protocol. Now you're in your backup quarterback.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation because there's a couple levels to it. Should people invest more in depth across the board now than they used to? Okay, that's fine. But we still only have the same amount of monopoly money. That means I'm not giving Josh Allen quite as big a contract or Aaron Donald or these receivers. You can't have everything. And people cheat on depth.
Right. And I do think that depth is easier to find.
Yes.
Right. You can find a backup player that's par with the backup players in the rest of the league a lot easier than you can find a star quarterback, star wide receiver. And so I think money's just going to keep going up for the best with the salary cap going up. The stars are still going to get paid. So you just have to be good at finding depth at the same cost as everyone else or even cheaper than everyone else does, which means you have to draft good. You have to be good in the later rounds. You have to identify, where you can find a veteran that's cheap on the free agent market to add to your roster to help those situations. But I do think there's something to it with the new protocol and concussion rules. And, you can thank the Miami Dolphins for maybe screwing that up and adding more scrutiny to it. Is that going to be a short-term thing? Is it a long-term thing? You do want to protect the brains of your players in your league. My response to it is you should be trying not to get your quarterbacks hit as much.
Yeah. Well, so many layers here because I always go back to the big weakness of defensive linemen are better than offensive linemen in the league. And deep down, if you gave Goodell truth serum, I think he would tell you that's the biggest problem we have on the field right now, and I don't know how to correct it. So we let holding be legal sometimes, things like that.
Yeah,
I'm aware of this because the Steelers do it every year. They've kept 3 quarterbacks since Bradshaw. And I think half the league or more than half the league doesn't. I bet that starts changing. That maybe that third quarterback is $1 million player. He's not a 7th round rookie. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's somebody that doesn't stink, that can get you out of a game. One thing is we've only seen a couple of years of these massive practice squads that showed up because of COVID. I think that will have a long-term effect too of depth
and development. Yeah. And the league needs, there's college football for all intents and purposes is minor league NFL, right? In reality. And they've never really had another minor league. And I think the practice squad has kind of become that. It's like, instead of having these games with other teams somewhere else, let's just have an extra, we're talking in the teens on every team on the practice squad.
Right. And some veterans as well. Yeah.
That's NFL Europe size rosters that are already in the NFL in the practice squads.
I used to harp on this more before you and I were doing podcasts together, but I kind of have a running joke that if I was named king of the world, I would build a NFL minor league system. Then I'd go after like world hunger and world peace and stuff like that. And now that the practice squads are so big, that's kind of accomplished that. I always wanted the Steelers to have a wheeling team that's an hour down the road, or Penn State, and you call up the quarterback for game day, like the Penguins and Pirates do, or, other leagues do, but I know it's a lot harder, easier said than done. But you could develop refs, you could develop quarterbacks, you could develop linemen, but the practice squad's kind of doing that for us now because it's so big.
So billionaire Matt Williamson would attack hunger and world peace first over NFL minor league?
No, all the way around. NFL minor league, get that set, and then
you'd still do it. Okay, I thought you were saying that you moved it down a couple of spots.
Well, now maybe
practice squad. Okay.
COVID helped me on that.
Yeah.
Yay, COVID.
Get rid of pandemics for NFL minor leagues. All right, next. How about the 2021 NFL draft? 5 first-round quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall. How would we redraft the top of that? Would some other non-quarterbacks be a lot higher in that draft class coming up next? BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth articles, and analysis on every game you can find. And if you're going to put your hard-earned money down, you're going to wager on football, you want to have the best information you can as well, right? And how about some of the updated lines around the league? Kenneth Walker and Bailey Zappi climbed up the list for Offensive Rookie of the Year. New additions like Brian Robinson, Wan'Dale Robinson making appearances now in the 2022 season. How about Alec Pierce, 33-1 for Offensive Rookie of the Year, game-winning catch last week. Biggest jumps for Coach of the Year. We just talked about him. Bill Belichick from 100 to 1 to 25 to 1 now.
Wow.
As is Pete Carroll at 25 to 1. Arthur Smith and Robert Saleh have the Jets and the Falcons respectively going in the right direction. Currently tied for 3rd and 5th in odds, 12 to 1 and 20 to 1 for Coach of the Year this season. Tons of odds for everything you can imagine in the NFL, and it's not just NFL football, college football, NBA just got going, Major League Baseball in the playoffs, MMA, boxing, golf, you name it. You can find it at betonline.net. So get to the website, use your mobile device to learn more at BetOnline, where the game starts. How about it, Matt? The 2021 NFL Draft. Mark says, redraft the 2021 draft. Is Trevor Lawrence still number 1 overall? Or maybe Chase, or maybe Parsons? Should Atlanta take Pitts at 4? Or would Waddle, Sewell, Slater be better options now? What do you think? You're the Let's start there. Jaguars, number 1 overall, have an opportunity to swap Trevor Lawrence right now for somebody else. Do they keep Lawrence, or do they take somebody else? And I think I know who at least my number 2 pick in the draft would be. Number 1, I'd still have a hard time not holding on to Lawrence. I haven't seen anything to disqualify him yet. And if you get the quarterback, it's still more important than anything else.
Yes, but there's at least 5, maybe 10 football players that are much better at what they do than what Lawrence is. You know, I mean, some of the names were mentioned, but there's a couple I think you have to throw out there that are, man, if I'm building a team, they would be very high draft picks for me. I'm looking at the first round right now. Chase, Waddle, Penei Sewell's having a tremendous season. Patrick Surtain might be my first cornerback drafted if I was starting a team.
Stud.
It's stud. You know, I'm not trying to be hot takey here, nor am I dissing my buddy from Pitt, Aaron Donald, but I think Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in the league right now. So
that's the name. Parsons is a top 2 pick in the draft if it's redrafted, and maybe number 1.
Maybe number 1. I wouldn't fight anyone if they took Parsons. He just impacts every play. I think Rashawn Slater could go in the top 5. Just because, I mean, tackles don't grow on trees, and you know they're not that much harder, easier to find than quarterbacks.
And we just talked about the problem of defensive lines being too good compared to offensive lines around the league, which I think is a big answer. We had a mailbag question we probably won't get to about why are points down and our points down overall, and it's like that's probably it. D lines are beating offensive lines.
Yeah, I think that's the root of it all. Fantasy points this time last year are down 22%. I think that's insane. I mean, that's huge gap, huge. And I mean, if you don't play fantasy, you still understand what's going on here. I think another part of the problem is who's the quarterback. Hurts probably is one that from last year to this year, stock rose dramatically. You know, Tua's probably did, but he's been hurt for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, like it wasn't anyone from this class, Lawrence, Jones, none of them went up. Even
no.
Burrow.
And Lawrence, I'll still buy the argument, maybe at number 1.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't take any of those other quarterbacks, knowing what we know now, over Parsons, Lamar Chase, Patrick Surtain, Sewell, or Slater.
Right.
The good question here is, how about Pitts at 4? The Falcons still take Pitts at 4, seeing how he's.
They don't. They would take Vera Tucker over him, or
I don't know if I'd go that far. But I mean, like,
you know,
first of all, he's a tight end.
would.
Positional value, tight end. Like, I think, is it Pitt? Is Pitts just not that good? Or is it just? So. I just think. I mean,
he doesn't fit what they're doing.
Put Pitts on the Buccaneers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I know. Put him anywhere else. They don't throw the ball.
I don't think it's Pitts. Like, I'll just put that out there.
I don't think it's Pitts either.
But he's a tight end, and I'm taking a stud tackle, stud defensive end, and I'd probably take my chance still on maybe some of these quarterbacks over Pitts right now. That is an interesting conversation about an interesting draft class. Tons of great questions. Apologies to the folks we did not get to. Thanks everybody for all of your mailbag questions every single week. Matt and I back tomorrow making picks and previewing week 7 right here, Peacock and Williamson.